Right now, we have Muhamed Abdel-Hack from Positive Energy Solar. Muhamed has worked in solar for over 6 years and has helped over 500 Albuquerque residents transition over to solar energy. He is the Albuquerque Regional Sales Manager for Positive Energy Solar and writes a weekly business column in the paper, a newspaper started last year in Albuquerque. Positive Energy Solar has also powered the EarthFest performances stage with solar energy for years, so we're big fans. Awesome. Muhamed, thank you for being with us and take it away.
Great. Thanks for having me. And, how do I follow and act like that?
It's tough, sorry.
I'll tell you how. I'll bring some comedy. No, but I have to say, you guys have done a fantastic job with this event, and I am just thoroughly enjoying listening to the different panelists, and Rob's music is just excellent, and I can't wait to actually follow you a little bit more, Rob, and maybe see you live in person around town. I'm really enjoying the event. So kudos to everybody who had a hand in putting it together, and thanks for all the panelists for being a part of it. I think it's great. So before I start, a couple of housekeeping points. One, whoever has the blue Ford Fusion in the parking lot, your lights are on. And also, my kids, I am doing this from home, and my kids are notorious for bursting into the room Kramer style. So that might happen. So we'll just be mindful of that as well. I'd like to go ahead and share my screen, and then we can talk about a little bit more some of the information I would like to get into with you. So let's see here. I think it's this one. Oh. Let's see, where did it go? There we go. Okay, can you see my screen okay, everybody?
Yes, looks great.
Okay, terrific. So I'm going to be taking us through just a brief Solar 101. I want to make sure that just kind of the core information about solar makes sense to folks, and certainly field any questions that you have. I mean, it's an area that's ripe with misconceptions. And so really, I want to kind of highlight the overview of how it all works and what it all means. And certainly any questions that you have, throw them in the chat, and we will leave some time for that at the end. So welcome to your Solar 101. Come along with me. You might laugh, you might cry, you might even learn something. So let's see what we can find out here. Initially, what is it that motivates people to go solar, right? Besides just being happy, like this young lady here, people are motivated by different points. You get people like me and maybe some others that are motivated by social responsibility and want to have a positive impact on the environment. However small, it's still a positive impact. Oftentimes, people are also motivated by the big, powerful dollar, right? If it doesn't make financial sense, even if they do have that motivation about the environment, it's not always an easy decision to make. So dollars and cents also play into it. It's a terrific investment for your home, and there are also tax incentives to help people take advantage of it. Speaking of planning for the future, this is a graph showing average utility prices over the past number of years, actually quite some time. And like anything else in our economy, you'll notice that there is a steady incline in just kind of where utility prices are going. It's no different for New Mexico. The average P&M rate increase is about 4.5% or so annually. Sometimes they get more, sometimes they get less, but what you're looking at is utility rates will continue to climb. Solar is meant to provide an alternative to that, and we can touch more on that in a bit. I mentioned the tax credits as well. So the tax credits are steadily fading away. Now, this graph is old. There have been some very recent changes with regards to tax credits, and we'll talk a little bit more about what it means. But essentially, the federal government is currently giving a 26% tax credit for anyone who goes solar. That's 26% off of the value of the entire system. Also, the state of New Mexico just brought back their tax credit. So along with this 26% tax credit, there is a 10% credit coming from the state. You'll notice the years are a little bit off. 2020 was meant to be the last year for the 26% tax credit, but it was extended into 2021. And then at the end of 2022, it will switch to 22%. But again, there's some more changes coming down the pipeline that might extend it further or even bring it back into this 30% level. The current president's administration is very green motivated. And so we are looking at possible extensions to this. So it's terrific for people to have access to that. Another great point too, we talked about the environmental impacts of going solar. These are some results for solar systems that we put together recently for folks. And it's pretty obvious. I mean, solar has a lot of points that people know, like CO2 reduction from the atmosphere, right? It's akin to X number of trees being planted. But sometimes what people forget is that going solar also helps to save water, right? And in an arid place like New Mexico, where every drop counts, I think it's an important point to highlight. And if you think about it, utilities, whether it's a coal-fired plant or a nuclear plant, they all use steam to make electricity. And so by not relying on that level of energy production or creation, right, that's fresh water that stays in the system. And so as the nation transitions more and the world transitions more to solar energy, this I think will be a huge, huge impact, especially in areas like New Mexico. Right? Your water bill won't change, right? But the overall message is we are saving water by helping people transition to solar. Right? And speaking of New Mexico, we are in an ideal climate for solar panels, right? Our elevation is high, we're a little bit closer to the sun. I don't think that's the main point, but we do get a lot more sun exposure, right? New Mexico, the Southwest, is one of the best places to produce solar energy. And Elon Musk famously said that taking up a small corner of, I think he even said New Mexico, Arizona, and maybe Utah or Nevada, will power and will create enough solar energy to power the entire United States. So I don't think that'll happen, but still, it's great to be in a place where we can benefit the most from the sunshine that we all love. That's one of the reasons why we live here. So you've seen solar panels around. No surprise, you know what they look like. They can go on different roof types. There's a lot of different roof surfaces here in New Mexico, and a good company can install on all of them or most of them, right? There are flat roof solar installations. There are asphalt shingle solar installations. There are tile roof solar installations. There are ground mounted solar installations. So they can go pretty much anywhere so long as there is sufficient sunlight access to be able to deliver and create as much solar energy as possible. Now, you do get folks that are really motivated, and even in slightly heavier shaded areas, they still want solar panels, and that's fine. There's no wrong answer. It's just there are sometimes more efficient places than others, and that's what a good solar company will work with you on in order to help identify that and then put together a system for you. But what is a solar panel, right? You see them around, you saw them on these pictures just now. What is a solar panel? Basically, a solar panel is not a whole lot of techie secret stuff, right? It's aluminum, it's glass, it's silicon cells that create the solar energy within them and then transfer that energy out, right? Silicon is probably the biggest part of a solar panel. It's the 14th element on the periodic table of elements. It's also, I believe, the 7th most abundant element in the universe. And so we found a way to really capitalize on that, right? Silicon, not to be confused with silicone, which we all know creates unique body parts, like fingers and ears. I don't know what you all were thinking, but there's a lot of different uses for silicone. So how does a solar panel work? How does a solar system work? Essentially, the solar cells, the solar panels are hit by sunlight. The little electrons within the silicon wafers start bouncing around a little bit, and they create electricity. That electricity feeds your house first, and then continues on out to the electric grid, right? A big misconception is that PNM will pay you for that electricity you feed back into the grid, and that's not true. What happens instead is that energy is credited back to you at a future month when you might need more power than the solar system can produce. Like in the winter, for example, when days are shorter, or maybe in the summer when you're really running your air conditioner, right? And you need a little bit more juice. That solar energy will come back to you as energy credits when you need access to it. But the solar panels themselves, as long as the sun is out, they'll be producing energy. So what is PNM's role in all of this? So PNM, for their part, it's not, don't think of it as solar versus utility and, you know, Godzilla versus King Kong. That's not what this is. PNM has to produce a certain amount of their power from renewable resources in actually through this decade. That it's a percentage that's going to continue to increase. And so grid-tied rooftop solar helps to play into that number because they are generating solar energy and it is going into their grid. So what ultimately a solar company will look at when they are putting together a solar array is this graph right here that identifies how much energy usage your home uses. And then based off of that energy, a solar system will get designed to basically offset that. Now, solar does work for commercial as well. I know it was spoken about earlier about the co-op possibly putting solar panels up. I think doing energy efficiency upgrades, like you mentioned you were doing, like LED lights and things like that, is a smart first step because everybody is in certain rate classes, and most homeowners are in a 1A rate class. Commercial businesses, it starts to make the most sense for a commercial business when you're in a 2A rate class. There's different variations, but 2A is where solar panels really make sense because it's the best financial impact. So if you look at the back of your PNM bill, you'll start to see how PNM actually bills a homeowner. And PNM bills on 3 tiers, depending on if summer months or every other month in the year, those rates will change. But basically their tiers fluctuate between 450 kilowatt hour increments. So as you climb up in your amount of energy usage, your first 450 kilowatt hours is always going to be 7.5 cents. In the summer or the winter, it doesn't matter. Block 2, though, that's where it starts to change, right? Block 2 is your next 450. So it's 450 to 900. You're paying either 12.5 cents in the summer per kilowatt hour or 10.5 cents in every other month. And then likewise, tier 3 is 15 cents in the summer or 12 in every other month. What solar is designed to do is basically create a block 0, where you're using your solar energy first before you ever have to revert back to PNM. And ideally, if you do need to revert back to PNM, let's say you used all your solar energy and all your solar credits, ideally, you'll just buy power from them back at this level 1 pricing, the cheapest tier they have. But if solar works great and you never ever need PNM power again, guess what? All you'll be left with is a $7.11 plus some taxes bill, right? It works out to be about $8. That's the connection. That's what everybody has to pay, but that's what'll be a part of your bill. So ultimately, what you're going to see is a graph that'll look something like this. There will be months when your solar system produces more energy than your home consumes, and there will be months where your home will actually spike a bit over the solar production. This is what I was talking about, where you'll bank energy, just like rollover minutes for a cell phone, if you remember that. I'm dating myself a little bit, but it will carry forward. They do not expire, they don't lose out, but they will apply against these spikes here, ideally, again, leaving you with just that $8 bill. And I like to end here in a minute, but this is always a fun little comic I like to share, right? It's an energy summit, room full of scientists, and all the benefits of green energy and sustainable living is on the screen. And then of course, there's the one guy that stands up and says, what if it's a big hoax and we create a better world for nothing? What if indeed, sir? What if indeed? Right? There's always that person, but I think we're moving in the right direction, and thankfully his voice is getting drowned out a little bit more. Some quick photos of just what installations look like, right? A good solar company will not penetrate a flat roof. Instead, there are ways to work around that. Ground-mounted systems are always an option if you have the space for it. Tile roof installations look really well, they work really well. And that was it. So I wanted to open it up to any questions or thoughts or comments, anything that I can maybe help to highlight.
All right, thank you. And I know Christopher's actually been answering some of the questions in chat as we went. So thank you also to Christopher for getting that information out there. So yes, if people have questions, please ask in chat or use the Q&A tool, or you can raise your hand and we can enable your microphone. And in the meantime, I actually have a couple questions myself. I am curious, I know Positive Energy Solar is a B Corp. How does that affect your business? How does that compare against other solar companies? I'm just
Sure,
curious.
yes. So think of it in terms of where people spend their dollars is really going to influence certain business practices. A B Corp is basically a way that a company holds itself accountable. It's ways that a business represents itself ethically, not just financially ethically, although that's a part of it, but also to its employees, to its customers, right? How it operates, how it represents itself in the community. So it's something that a lot more businesses are starting to catch on to. And I think UNM even had a program recently sort of talking about the benefits of B Corps. But it's one way that Positive does try to stand out a little bit because, you know, our mission here is not just to put solar on rooftops. Our mission is to educate and have a positive impact in the community that we live in, the community that we serve. And being a B Corp just helps us to kind of shine that in a small package. Because ultimately, when people start to understand what a B Corp means, they'll know the value that the company is trying to deliver, and hopefully, you know, have that resonate with them a little bit more.
Thank you. We had another question, and actually, you know what, I'm just going to run through some of the questions that were already answered in chat, just in case anybody's listening who does not have chat open. Some of the points covered were, there was a question of if the federal and state credits for solar installations can be combined, and it sounds like yes, they can. So right now, it's 26% federal plus 10% state for a total of 36%. There's also a question about the net metering. I forget that's what it's called. When you produce more energy than you need, what do you actually get in return from the power company? And it sounds like PNM is one of the better ones out there with a one-to-one match. So
yes, that's true. You don't lose out on any value of the energy that you've created, which is great because for my house, my system tends to overproduce in the early spring months between February and around May. And then we turn on the air conditioners, and that overproduction that I built up earlier in the year applies against my more peak demand in the summer. So it works out really well.
all right, and then let's see. There was another question about will the monetary credits last indefinitely, or will they change the policies? I'm guessing that's probably trickier for you to predict, right?
I mean, as we know it right now, the tax credits, if that's what it's referring to, you know, as long as they're around, they're accessible. The one thing to note is that the state credit it's around, I believe, for maybe 4 or 5 more years, but it only has an $8 million bucket allocated annually. So once that level is reached, the credit is no longer available for anyone who goes solar that year. You can try to apply for it in the following year. It's just that you have to wait another tax cycle before you get that back. So it's $8 million between residential homes and commercial businesses. Last year, the bucket didn't run out, but I mean, solar's been exceptionally busy over these past couple of years, and I wouldn't bank on it not running out at some point.
Thank you. I think we have a little bit more time here for just dedicated questions for you. After that, we can open it up for questions to any presenters, open-ended. So if anybody has any more questions for Positive Energy Solar, please speak up now. And I actually have another one myself. I was prepared, and I'm curious. So this is great. Thank you. I am really curious, actually, about the environmental impact of the production and the end of life cycle of panels like these. Because of course, you know, once it's installed, yeah, that's great. It's a much better source of energy. But I'm assuming that, you know, there are ways to make panels more and less well, such that, you know, maybe this panel actually ends up as a net negative for the environment because of really bad materials or really bad practices in production. How the heck do we navigate that? How do we know what panels to get if our goal is just maximizing the environmental impact benefits?
Right. I think a big part of that is really understanding which manufacturers the solar companies that you're looking to partner with work with, because any company, again, such that maybe a B corporation, will take that into account, because ultimately you're right. You know, these solar panels will get to a point to where they're not as efficient as they were in the first day. Sure, that's going to be maybe 30, 35 years out, but there are ways that solar panels can be recycled. There are ways that they can be, there are some organizations that will take them and use them in developing countries, because even though they might not be as efficient as they were when we installed them, they are still producing electricity. And so they can be reused. They don't simply turn off. So there are different ways, and again, a solar panel itself is not so complex that the materials cannot be recycled. Again, it's glass, it's aluminum, it's silicon. There's not a lot in there that could potentially be hazardous, but it is something to be mindful of. And I like to think that any solar panel manufacturer really wants to shine that as an incentive for having solar panels that they offer too. So fortunately, I think that that's something that there's ample resources available for, ultimately to recycle them.
Okay, I didn't realize that's very good to know. We have another question in the chat here. How long do the panels typically last for? And maybe do you have like a rough estimate for about a 2,000 square foot house? I think somebody's specifically curious about their case.
I would say as far as the lifetime of a solar panel, I mean, they will work for quite some time. And I mentioned just a second ago, at least 30 years. At least 30 years you can expect to have significant positive energy production from a solar panel. And I would tell you that the warranty on the panels that we use puts them at 92% as efficient as the day they came out of the box after 25 years. So you're looking at a good long time worth of energy production. As far as estimate for a 2,000 square foot house, maybe email me, because that's more challenging. The better thing to do is to possibly look at your home energy consumption rather than square footage, because I've been to big houses with small bills and vice versa. People that grow cannabis, medical cannabis in their houses, or mine for cryptocurrency, I mean, their bills are outrageous, and it's not always the big houses that need giant systems. So email me if you can. I'd be happy to maybe work up some more specific numbers.
That sounds great. Would you put your email in the chat just so that's super easily accessible to everybody?
Yes,
That'd be nice. Thank you so much. And we may be coming knocking down the road to ask about how does all this work for, business level installations. There's a lot for us to learn.